All right. Hello, everyone. Gonna do a quick live stream today before the Thanksgiving festivities start. So let's pick up where we left off last time. Last time I cached Confident Laravel homepage. So let's just go see that in action. Confidentlaravel.com. Let's bring up the network tab of the inspector. Let's hit the docs page and we'll just kind of hit this a couple times. We'll refresh it, we'll hard refresh it. Okay, so if we hit over in the docs and I not filter, oh wait, that's a lot. Okay, let's filter, there we go. Okay, cool. So the initial page request when I loaded up by typing in the browser, 200 cache hit from the browser, 1 millisecond. Can't beat that. Okay, then I hard refreshed it in the browser up here 2 times, both from the nav bar and here. But because the inspector was open, it automatically kind of disables the browser cache when you refresh from here. You have to navigate normally. So what I mean by that is like, I don't think there's a link to the homepage here, unfortunately, but I'm pretty sure if yeah, there's no direct link. So like, I think if I hit enter here, that might be considered a refresh, but yeah, there you go. Okay. So if I actually navigate in the browser, we'll see that it doesn't, but if I navigate through the inspector, I get 304s because it's actually going to temporarily disable the cache and hit Cloudflare. So we can see here, we got a Cloudflare hit and it's still pretty blazing fast, 23 milliseconds, like, consistently under 30 milliseconds. We see from the Ray here, it's coming from ATL. They should all be ATL. That's my fastest hub, I think. Sometimes I'll see like Indianapolis or Nashville here. Even though those are physically closer, I think the hard links to ATL are like kind of historic, so they're technically like faster from a network perspective, even though they might be physically farther. So anyway, the point here, that's what we did last week. We cached this landing page. We set it up to cache in a Laravel app by kind of breaking through the default behavior and setting the appropriate cache headers and turning that on in Cloudflare. Okay, so what we noticed though in Cloudflare, if we go back to Cloudflare dashboard, what I kind of started with, what we noticed though is that my guess was that we would be up in like the 60 to 70% cached because the homepage is a majority of the traffic. This is an old course of mine. There's not that many like active users in the interior pages, which would not be cached. But what I noticed was that that's true when I'm getting, low traffic and it's for the homepage, right? So we see spikes here is the point, 50%, 63%, we see an 85%. Again, look at the unique visitors here, just 2. But when I get a surge in traffic, for example, this 1,200 requests at 11 p.m. last night, potentially a crawler or some other things on the site, notice that percent cache drops to nothing. I mean, like 1%. That's even worse than just kind of out of the box Cloudflare. And we can tell here from this inverted spike that, again, this was a crawler, maybe somebody scraping the site. I don't really know. The point here, though, is that with only 11 unique visitors and like, what, 4,000% higher of total requests, something clearly was going on at that point in time. Now, I could go back in the logs and see kind of what that is. Ooh, sorry, I need like my morning juice jolt there. I could go back in the logs and see what it is. And in fact, if we go over to the second tab, we can see here things are getting hit on the site. So all of these are 200s, but I think last week, here, let me go full screen me. Apologies. Let's go full screen me for a second. Is this me? No, that's taking me off. I just muted myself, I think. Unmute. All right, hold on. There used to be a quick key. All right, here's full screen me. Apologies for a second. Let me just make sure I'm not gonna like completely leak something. So last week we did like this Unix command to kind of dump this out. Let me just make sure the output here doesn't like show anything weird. Okay, cool. No, let's look at this. This is good. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, So I've just run this Unix command on the last logs on one of the web servers. So we see here, if you were watching last week, we noticed here that the home page or slash was like 400 requests out of all these, right? So we see here it's not even showing up here anymore, and that's proof that it's being cached. It's not hitting. It's being cached by Cloudflare. It's not even hitting our web server anymore, right? What is hitting the web server are images, which is interesting that those should be cached, in my opinion, by Cloudflare. So should the CSS file. So it's interesting that those are not getting cached. My guess is I don't have that turned on as default behavior by the web server, which it should be. But again, this is a pretty old site, so maybe it's got an old, web server config file that I wasn't doing that yet. So I'll go check that. But regardless, Cloudflare actually, by default, is supposed to cache images. There must be something about these of why it's not, or it's probably just not caching them for very long, so they're still getting hit by the home page. Anyway, the point I want to make is that as we get down here, as we get to the long tail, all this is crap. This is crap requests. So if it doesn't seem like much, 20 requests here, 20 requests there, but I mean, clearly somebody is trying to attack this from like a WP WordPress vulnerability standpoint, right? So like they're just trying to hit, they're just assuming a site's WordPress and they're scanning for vulnerabilities. So that could account for, this major traffic at 11 p.m. Maybe this just got hit by some kind of WordPress bot, again, searching for vulnerabilities. So the point is that when my server is getting hammered with that, not only is the server getting hammered, as I just said, but it's invalid traffic. It's traffic that doesn't matter. And as such, it's inverting my spike here. So I go from like 85% cached of the homepage to 1% cached because of this invalid traffic. Even though it's not, a big page or it's 404, it's a lightweight page or whatever, it's still, if you add up this long tail, this is far more traffic for this tiny, tiny site is invalid than it is valid. So let's get rid of it. Let's just block it. This is dumb traffic. I don't want that traffic. Michael Dorinda wrote a post on this a while back about doing it specifically for Nightwatch endpoints, so he like didn't burn through his quota. But that kind of got my like CS brain thinking, and it's like, well, why are we just blocking a couple invalid requests? Like you could say, oh, WP star, block it. Well, we can do better than that. We know exactly what endpoints our application has available. Anything else should just get blocked. So we basically make an allow list. In security, it's always easier to say what's allowed than it is to say all the things that are not allowed, right? So how do we know what's allowed? Well, we got a cool little command. It's called route list. There it is. This gives us access to everything, every endpoint in our application, whether it's regular, dynamic, or whatever. It's all in here, right? I wrote an article in this a little while ago, so let's go to Laravel News, JMac. There I am. I think I wrote this. It's kind of as part of my Cloudflare articles. I wrote that, blocking invalid requests. And JT, one of my fellow pair buddies here, he kind of turned this into a package. It's gotten some pretty good traffic since the article, a couple PRs and so forth. So let's go ahead and install this, run this, and what it's going to do is it's going to output a Cloudflare WAF rule that we can go put into Cloudflare, and immediately all of that's going to be blocked at the edge. So we can test that ourselves, but over time we'll see that log, like a future stream, we'll see that log really just ends up being requests for things that are actually in the application. And as we cache more and more and more and more and more, our web server gets hit less and less and less and less and less. So, that equates to dollars or more resources on the server. You could downgrade the server. You might, if you're using something like Laravel Cloud, you might hibernate more often. So again, this is reducing cost. This isn't just like improved performance. It could actually reduce cost as well. So let's get this. I think I already installed this, in fairness, just making sure everything worked pre-stream, but let's run the commands. Yeah. It shouldn't actually need to download anything, I don't think. It's got a newer version. Okay, no problem. Okay, and we don't need the config file. I think that was a new addition. You only need that if you want this to auto deploy. Now I mentioned this last time. I don't recommend auto deploying it. This is gonna give you a good rule, but you should really review it. So let's run this. Okay, so what it gives us is this Cloudflare WAF rule. It's basically like a Cloudflare expression that you're going to dump into one of their rules here in a second. But I want to bring this up in like some kind of editor so we can at least like review it ourselves real quick. Let's just bring up Adam. Old school. I leave it on the machine just for quick things like this where like I don't want to get in Vim, but I also don't want to like load PHP Storm. So we'll just do this for a second. Let's just get in the README file. I just kind of want to see this like a bit better, right? Here we go. So let's kind of parse this out for a second. So, and in the process, we'll review like what actually needs to be, shown here. There's some things here that I think were part of development that we could get rid of. So we basically say if anything is not in a specific path. So when we run route list, we know what specific endpoints are. They're not dynamic in any way. They don't have route parameter bindings, model bindings, whatever. They don't have any of that. So this would be like the homepage / I think I have this redirect here for like an old school coupon code, so we can get rid of that. And I think these all these HTML files were like generating some SEO images, so I think we can get rid of that. We got this download code endpoint, favicon, icon HTML, same thing. Icon HTML I think is just for like that. Okay, invoice create, login, log out. The mix manifest must still be using Laravel mix. Does that need to be public? I know the file system uses it, right? I know the file system uses it. Does it actually need to be publicly accessible? I don't think it does. I don't think it does. I'm gonna kill it, and we'll see pretty quick in the WAF rules if it's needed or not. Okay, so order, password, confirm, password, email, password, reset, all the password stuff, register, robots, yep. Now notice robots wasn't an endpoint. Robots wasn't an endpoint in route list, of course. Neither was like the add.html or any of that stuff. But it actually will scan your public directory too and make sure that all is good in there as well. So robots, txt, sitemap, all that stuff is in there. Testing tips, okay, up is, we're gonna get rid of up. I don't do any health checks on here, we don't need it. I'll turn it off in the actual application too, just because it's unneeded. Okay, so users edit, watches. Okay, and then we're gonna get to the wildcard stuff. So it looks like we got dusk, login, we don't need that. We don't need any of that, we can kill that. Why is my highlighting messed up here? Okay, so we got CSS, images, JS, password reset star. So see, this is where like some of that parameter binding happens. So password reset star would be, the star is the token part. Promotion star, purchasing power star, storage. I don't think I do cross-linking through storage. I think that's just kind of a default Laravel thing. I'm gonna get rid of that. And then videos star. We're not gonna list out every single video in there. We could, but here's the thing about this WAF rule. It's got like a 4K character limit. So because of that, where it can, this package is gonna be a little bit like fuzzy, right? So let's take this. There's another important thing in here, and I was actually talking to JT about this yesterday. It's down here in the notes, but we wanna prefix our rule with this. And we wanna put in confidentlaravel.com, and I think these need to be double quoted. I'll open up a PR for that after the stream. Okay, so here's the reason why this is important. When I first added these to Laravel Shift, the Laravel Shift worked great. The problem was I had subdomains on laravelshift.com, right? So I had blueprint.laravelshift.com, blog.laravelshift.com, store.laravelshift.com. I had all these different things. And while, again, the main site, laravelshift.com, the top domain, worked great, my subdomains had started having random pages that didn't work. Well, that's because they had some paths that fit this rule and some paths of their own that didn't. So what this is doing is basically saying, look, this WAF rule only applies to this domain. So if it is this domain and it's not the endpoints that we said are for this domain, then kick out the WAF rule, right? So that's why this is, this one's a good one to have. Now, I don't think I have any subdomains on confidentlaravel.com, but again, I think it's good practice. It's kind of all part of why, as you just saw, I wouldn't automate this deployment. You can with this package, but I wouldn't do it. It's good to just give it a quick review, right? You could have development endpoints in here, things that, are in your route list, but shouldn't be in production, so to speak, right? Okay, let's go set up this WAF rule. If you go to security rules, create a rule, custom rule, let's call this, I think it's like block invalid, or we'll just say allowed paths. I've done this on Laravel shifts. Okay, and we're gonna do the expression directly, and it will check this when you hit save. Okay, so again, it's all gonna go in here. It's gonna validate this syntax when we hit save. We can save it as a draft just to be sure. And then I'm gonna do block. You can do other things in here. You can say like, oh, it has to be challenged or whatever. That's gonna get rid of bot traffic. That way, if you're a real user, you could make them just do that. Like I think GitLab does that when you sign in. It runs a challenge on sign in. So you can do that. Now, unfortunately, with the free plan on block, you can't. I think with the paid plans, you can actually have other options there, like a specific status code, or you can redirect them to a certain page. Again, this is the free plan. I don't feel like paying $200 a month for this, old school course, but there are potentially other options there. So for now, let's just hit save as draft to allow it to kind of validate this expression. Okay, it looks like I got a problem here, so let's see here. What's wrong? That's not ideal. Can't read you. Expected quote. Okay, I thought the quote looked weird. In here. What happened? Did I think I backspaced out a quote when I shouldn't have. Let's check this. I think when I was getting rid of one of these, I left a quote somewhere I shouldn't have. Let's see. Okay, so, or wild, okay, yeah, there it is. Boop. Okay, so, or that, or, I think when I was getting rid of those dusks, I think I messed it up. Let's drop that in and hit save as draft. There we go, that feels better. Let's close their crappy error message. Okay, so let's just go look at this one more time. So we've got Confident Laravel. If you are Confident Laravel and you are not in one of these paths or one of the wildcard expressions, you get blocked. Save and deploy. Oh, no. Enable, there we go. Okay, it's now active. So if I go out to Confident Laravel and I go to one of those like WP XML RPC.php, I get blocked. Okay, before this went to the server. There's absolutely no reason to go to the server on something like this. This doesn't exist, and I'm okay with this message in this case. Now, here's where the experience is a little bit lame. Let's say you were a big site and you had a blog. Well, there's your example right there. Had a blog post. Okay. You had a blog post. Someone mistyped it, right? Instead of, blog post, right? So a typo in a typed out URL is now going to yield, you've been blocked. It's not the best user experience in the case of a typo. How often do people have typos on your site when they're typing it into the URL, for a specific endpoint? So again, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off in this kind of case, right? This is a use case where the user experience of a potentially valid user is kind of lame. They're going to read this and think that you've been blocked. It'd be nicer if it just kind of said 404, I think most users, even unsavvy users, are somewhat okay there, and they might be able to figure it out. Again, a typo even in another scenario where you get a 404 still isn't the best experience. So, I'm pointing it out because this is a clear use path where like that might be annoying. Now, here's how, even on a big site, here's how I would potentially kind of work around that trade-off. As you start to do these allowed paths now, I don't know how quickly the events are going to show up here. We'll see. Yes, good. Okay, there's already 12. Okay, so here's me probably on the top one when I did had a blog post, right? Okay, so you can go in here, edit columns. You can go in here and let's get rid of IP address and just bring in this path. There we go. All right. And we kind of don't need this rule thing either. The action taken is kind of dumb. And the service is dumb because we know we're always blocking. Just to give us a little more room here. Okay, so here we go. Here's me, that WP XML RPC. The point is, if you're seeing some things in here that look like they kind of match potentially thing, or it's like a common typo or whatever, you can just go in and add them to your WAF rule over time. Like you can just troll this as you put this rule into place. Troll it every now and then just kind of dial in the WAF rule. If this is a super popular post and people are somehow messing it up, or someone cross-linked you from a popular site, but they had a typo in the URL, and it mattered to you, again, you could open it up in the WAF rule. But all this other stuff, like we're seeing, like crappy traffic, I'm completely okay for those people experiencing from Cloudflare just a straight up blocked thing. So there you have it. So yeah, this, we can get rid of this now. Don't save. Quit out of that. So that's that. I mean, we should see, if we go back to overview. Now, we're not going to wait on the stream for an hour, but my guess is now that all this is blocked, and I can do a tweet, of this later in a couple hours. But what we should see here is a crazy plateau up, like a hockey stick, and then a plateau. We should see it hockey stick up to like 70, 80% based on this. And then it should just stay there consistently now because we're not getting any of this crappy traffic anymore. And when I troll the logs next time using that unique thing, the unique Unix command, I mean, honestly, there should be nothing in the logs for this site. It's an old site. It's not getting a lot of traffic. It's not getting a lot of user traffic. And so as such, the web server should be very, very quiet for this particular domain, for Confident Laravel. But of course, I still want to keep it active, right? And so we'll just cache the crap out of it. Let's go see what we're getting here. Yeah, 40 milliseconds. We're a little longer now, 38, 39, 40. And again, this is me refreshing here. Okay, here you go, Jax, so that's Jacksonville. So we're coming out of Jacksonville now. So Cloudflare determined that that's faster at the moment. But notice it's not the 20 milliseconds out of Atlanta. So we are physically traveling farther. We can see that in the array. JAX is Jacksonville. So that's still pretty fast. 40 milliseconds. So pretty nice. Anyway, there you have it. I think the combination of the two for most sites, caching simply your landing page, which is probably your most active page. And then of course you can cache other pages underneath if you got an FAQ or a terms of service or a privacy policy, these things that don't change at all. And then blocking all of that long tail, invalid, crappy traffic that's potentially some kind of attack vector, get rid of it. You can do that with this package. I think doing those two things alone, as we see here, I mean, it bumped this old site up to 85% cached on the Cloudflare free plan, right? I'm not paying anything for this. This is just all automatic. I don't have barely any work. I mean, there's two streams. This stream was 24 minutes. The other stream was 40 minutes, and a lot of it was me yapping. So in under an hour, you can cache your site in the 80th percentile and decrease your server traffic by a factor of probably 70%. So if all that sounds really cool to you, I am making a video course on all this. Like I said here, you know what's coming, all this research, all this stuff, all this kind of fleshing this out, proving it out on Laravel Shift, which is a larger site than Confident Laravel, so there's a lot more proof there. The only discount, in kind of honor of Black Friday here, the only discount you're going to get is if you're on this list when the course launches. So I'm hoping to launch it mid-December. Go ahead and get on this list now. You'll get an email update here in a week or so, and then you'll get an email with a link. That's the only emails you'll get for this list. Takes nothing to sign up. It gives you the option at having the only discount that's going to be offered for this course. So jump out here, sign up, and I will see you all next Wednesday for, maybe we'll do one more of these. I don't know. I feel like this is pretty good for now. As I get deeper into the course, maybe we'll do one more on maybe caching a more advanced piece of the page. But there's some stuff on Blueprint and Laravel I want to do, especially as we approach 2026, where potentially Laravel 13 is on the horizon. I want to make sure I get some things in there. So thank you all for joining live. If you celebrate, have a happy Thanksgiving. Otherwise, I'll see you next Wednesday.